welcome to Bouldersaurus. In this episode, I'll be talking about 4 boulders that use dynamic movement. Dynamic movement refers to movement reliant on momentum and timing, rather than just strength and stamina. Its opposite being static climbing. While dynamicism isn't always required in a climb, I attribute my biggest climbing gains and climbing difficulty to incorporating more dynamic movement. This first boulder has what's called a coordination dyno. Coordination dynos typically refer to a dynamic movement with multiple parts reliant on timing. This dyno has 3 parts: the takeoff, the foot hop, and the follow-through. When performing moves like this, it is important to generate enough momentum, but also make moves to stop it, as you see with this back flag. To generate momentum, I pull my body into a compact space, and to stop my momentum, I spread my body outward, much like how a figure skater spins. Dynamic movement can even show up in more static parts of the climb. For example, notice my left foot. I must kick it out to spread my legs wide enough to generate enough friction with this smear. Let's watch this climb in its entirety. While the first climb's crux focused on dynamic movement, the dynamicism in this next climb is a bit more subtle. The climb starts with a cross move into a large sloper. In order to get to the next sloper, I use what's called a pogo. Notice in this close-up of my upper body how stable my shoulders are in this movement. I'm not strong enough to do a one-arm pull-up, so let's see how my lower body helps to give me a moment of weightlessness. In this pogo, the right leg generates the momentum, but notice how quickly I turn my hips to stop my momentum and guide my trajectory. I do this because the hold I'm going to is sloped, and I need to hit it in a controlled way, so I cancel my momentum as soon as I generate it to give me the pop of weightlessness I need. Okay, let's move on to the crux of this climb, this series of 3 crimps. This must be done statically because the holds are so small and a lot of body tension is needed to stay on the wall. A well-rounded climber practices both dynamic and static movements to be ready for all types of boulders. Let's break down this movement just a bit more. Notice how my right foot is essential for this sequence, as it's keeping me on the wall. Without it, I'd have to rely completely on my fingers, which have just under a centimeter of an edge to hold. Past this part though, it's a relatively easy sequence to the finish hold. Let's see the entire climb. This next climb uses a dynamic move known as a paddle dyno. In the first climb, foot coordination was essential, but in this paddle dyno, hand coordination is the focus. You can see the paddle motion happen right here. Much like the previous climbs, after a dynamic start to the boulder, the end very much relies on more static movement. It should be noted that the wall here is overhung by 30 degrees. The start of the climb requires navigation on this line of pinches. Sections like this can be tricky to read because there are a lot of ways to go about it. The proper position for the paddle dyno on this climb is almost hidden, as it requires work to figure out how to position yourself properly, as opposed to the first two climbs where the positioning is straightforward. I widen my base to be as stable as possible and generate momentum by really thrusting my body to the right. Once my left hand hits, my right hand moves to catch the jug, so I can spread my body out and stop my momentum. The timing is super important here, as you want to get both hands on the large flat hold when you're nearly at the peak of your jump. If not, you'll hit the jug with the wrong momentum and it's really easy to spin off. One extra note is as I slow down my momentum, I turn my left hand into a press to create opposition on my right hand that's pulling on the jug. The top of this climb is harder than it looks, as this vertical pinch is very difficult to hold on this angle. But if you squeeze it hard enough, the move to the finish hold is an easy one. Let's watch this climb in its entirety. This last climb is much easier than the others, but it gives us an opportunity to look at options for skipping dynamic movements. The climb starts with this dynamic stand-up to grab this jug. Given its position, it thrusts your body to the right, so I must quickly pick up my feet to stop my momentum. But what if we didn't need to go dynamic? Notice here, I anticipate the swing to the right and place my body in such a way that it already stops the momentum. The drawback here is that this method requires a lot more pinch strength than the dyno. My right hand is carrying nearly all my weight through this move. There is yet another option. Here, I delay my momentum by getting a heel hook around the arete on the start hold. This takes out the coordination aspect, as I can secure the hold first and then unwind my momentum. Notice I kick my leg out to stop the swing. The top of this climb is relatively straightforward, with a match on this bubbly hold and, in my case, a quick jump to the top of the wall. Let's see the entire boulder. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing and stay tuned for some bloopers. See you later.
You got this. Yeah. Come on, good. Oh.